Hi, mamas, and welcome. And thank you for joining us again for another episode for this week. How are you? If you are in Australia, specifically like me in Melbourne, when are you returning to school? Have you already returned to school? How were your holidays? And how did you go transitioning back to school? I know for some of us, that can be tricky. So if you're listening in, let me know how that's gone for you. Today, I have a really interesting topic that seems to be somewhat controversial sometimes, but it's also researched and studied, and some opinion pieces have been written about it. So I thought, based on some things that other mums have said or sent to me, it would be a cool topic to chat about today. So, the topic is why parenting feels harder than ever before now. Than it ever has. So tends to be kind of a controversial topic at times because some people will say, no, we had it harder then, or we have it harder now. But here is what is being discussed or studied or looked at currently, and why it could actually be true that parenting right now is harder than ever. So, have you ever thought, why does this feel so hard? Why did my parents seemingly just get through it? Why did mums before not say that it was hard? Um, have you ever thought like you love your kids so deeply, but you feel like you are more touched out than you see other mums being, or that other generations of mums may have looked or appeared to be? Let's get deep into this today because it can be quite an interesting topic. And also, like, I want to say, um, first of all, you're not imagining it, that parenting today is, in fact, a lot harder. And not because other generations haven't had their own hard. I want to validate that they also have. And, they'll say things like, but there was war and our parents were coming out of like a depression and blah, blah, blah. But we're also kind of going through those things right now. We're going through cost of living crisis, um, all these crazy things happening in the world at the moment that's not what we're going to go deep on, but like we're also facing challenges. So both two truths can be existing at the same time. It's not a competition about which generation had one harder than the other, but it's just to let you know that maybe if it feels hard for you and you're constantly thinking, oh my God, like my mum just seemingly got through it, or my aunties did, or my whatever, but I'm really struggling and no one seems to get it when I talk to them, or they seem to just go, why do mum, like I've even had mum say to me in my content, um, like, why do mums complain so much nowadays? No one used to say it was hard before, or like, mums used to just get on with it. Why is everyone stressed and anxious today? And I've probably covered little bits of this in other episodes. I'm not really sure if I have gone as deep on this one topic though. And the truth is, it's not just you. Around 70% of parents believe that today's generation is harder. It is facing its own challenges. And we're going to go into a few varied reasons or subcategories as to why today. But it's just to validate you that it is not just you. Other parents feel that way too. So to say that, oh, parents used to just get on with it, did they really? I feel like this part I've covered before and I will continue to probably cover, but they didn't just get on with it. They were probably just surviving. And a lot of them will say that to you. We were just getting through it too. Um, they maybe didn't have the social media platforms that we have today to talk about the things we talk about. They didn't have a podcast like I have now to listen to. Um, and it definitely was not, like then it was just the media outlets that they had to listen to, the news and the radio and music stations. They did not have different experts chit-chatting on different podcasts, and a mum like myself can create a podcast too. So um, there have been studies on this that, like I said, 70% of parents today say that it is now harder than it ever was or than it was, say, 20 years ago. So it's not you, it's not a personal failure, it's a collective awareness. The mental load. The mental load of parenting is different today than it was before. Parenting today isn't just doing tasks. Now, this may trigger some to hear, but a lot of the parents that say, "Oh, we had it harder in our day," or "We just got on with it, why are you complaining?" or any of those type of statements you may hear is, "We just got on with it, why are people so stressed today?" Or "We had it hard, we were surviving out of whatever I mentioned earlier." They were also very much in a different category of living world and state of being. So the mental load and the physical load and the cognitive load today is much different. Parenting today is not just doing tasks like cooking and cleaning and sending your kids outside until the streetlights came on. So a lot of the time nowadays, we are much more present and deep into doing this parenting thing. I don't know about you personally, but my personal experience is that my children do not go outside unless I'm with them. Maybe in the backyard to play, where I'm supervising them through the window while I'm doing the tasks that need to happen, like cooking and cleaning to get the household running. But I am not sending them out to ride their bike down the street. Like I used to ride my bike with my cousin and my brother down the creek, and my mum would be home. Doing whatever she was doing at the time. So, parenting is a much more present task in today's world. I'm not saying that all parents weren't present in previous generations, but it was seen as like dad goes to work, mum cooks and cleans, and the kids can just go and play. But today, it's a very different world that we live in. So, you are having to constantly be with your child. So, if you're saying, "I don't feel like I have a moment to get a breath or take a break," that is true. You have to be with your child 24 hours a day. If they are not in some other care arrangement, then they are with you or another carer or parent all of the time. So, I have children that were definitely at the same age where I was, off riding down the street or visiting the neighbor's house. And for us, that doesn't quite seem to be what we have today. That's my personal experience. I would love to know if that is a similar experience you have faced or experiencing, or if that's your belief too, that perhaps we are in a different world now where, um, there are different challenges as to whether you feel safe to let your child do certain things, or whether you are constantly with them. Um, Obviously, it depends on the age and maturity and ability of your child, but every family has their own sort of thoughts, beliefs, and patterns around what's okay and not okay for that. So, scheduling and planning. Another one that also is talked about often is even just school or daycare emails and notifications in of themselves. And if you've got children with different medical or doctor's appointments or therapy appointments like myself, that in itself feels like a mental load or a cognitive load, because you are constantly getting the dings and the updates and the notifications, whereas prior was just a piece of paper sent home in the child's backpack. So these are different things that are kind of adding to the mental and cognitive load. And we're not talking about just stay-at-home parents or working parents. We're talking about the general parenting load. Research does also show that mothers, no matter what the household dynamic is, whether it's a present dad or not, but mothers in general carry 71% of the mental and cognitive and emotional load. One that can be biologically and spiritually, that you are just bonded and connected to the child. And so at a very young age, they need your emotional connection. But also, you are carrying the mental load, like I said, the admin, the booking of appointments, the to-do list and the checklist of running a household. So whether you are a working mum or a stay-at-home mum, those checklists still exist for both dynamics, right? So the scheduling and the planning and the remembering, and if you're a neurodivergent family or a medically complex family or whatever, you will have an additional mental load on top of that because you are, in fact, having to book extra appointments that perhaps a typical family without those disabilities or medical illnesses won't have to book those, or keep track of them and keep track of the goals and the planning. So there are definite different cognitive loads for families in those different areas. But you're also not just running a family. The entire operation can be invisible in your mind and your body. So I really want to acknowledge that mental load because I carry it too. Just because I have a coaching program for mums does not mean I am invisible to the stresses, the cognitive load, the mental load, and the emotional toll that motherhood can face. So, or parenting in general. I want to validate that dads do face stress and challenges too. I think there's so much talked about out there that mums face this and mums face that, but dads do too. And the balance is very different, but also there is research to say that mums carry 71% or 70-ish percent more than dads do when it comes to the actual mental load and the ongoing to-do list and checklist. The grocery shopping, the cooking, the cleaning. Is this done? Has this been like, and I want to put my hand up and say, I am the mum that misses most appointments and sorry, there was something like I think it was out the window, like a butterfly or a bird near my window that just made a shadow as it flew past, and it distracted me. Sorry about that. Parenting has become intensive. So there's been a huge shift towards intensive or intentional parenting, being, like I said, constantly present and involved. The emotional awareness that we are starting to break generational cycles and be more emotionally in tune with ourselves, but with our children. And this is what my coaching is about, right? Breaking cycles, and the more energetic and emotionally attunement. Like all of these things I cover in my coaching support. Um, Parents today spend significantly more time than previous generations did. So, I was born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s and 2000s. And as I said, I was often allowed to just ride my bike down the street. I don't even let my kids walk to school. Now, that's my personal belief currently, and there's a few different things around why that exists for me. But I know I'm not the only one that does this and feels like this currently. You're not just feeding your children and letting them go off to play these days. We are actually breaking so many generational cycles. We are breaking, first of all, the cycle of just tasks and survival. Literally, the bare minimum of human survival has been in past generations seen as parenting. I fed you, I clothed you, I cleaned you. And that was it. Now we are raising a generation of conscious attunement and emotional attunement and connection and presence and intentions. Being so present and intentional with our families can really carry another load. And for many mums, and the reason again that my coaching exists is because it's like, am I enough? Am I doing enough to break this cycle? Um, so the emotional load, previous generations focused so much, as I said, on the physical tasks of like, I clothed you, I cooked, I cleaned, I fed you. Maybe the next level was, is your homework done? That's about it. The connection the different parenting advice and strategies today available to us that are backed by developmental research also creates another load. There, before it was a lot of correction and off you go. Now it is connection over correction. So the communication and, like I've repeated, healing generational patterns. Research also shows that modern parents carry far more emotional responsibility than they have before. You're tackling your child's feelings and emotions and actually really trying to face them, your own, while facing theirs, which many say was not done previously. That emotional connection wasn't always there for some families in previous generations. We're parenting under a microscope as well. And as I said prior, it's the constant notifications and the constant new research and development, pardon me, expertise. And for some, even listening to a podcast like this might overwhelm them. I hope to be the opposite in this space and bring you clarity and grounding and support. But I know that some just don't have the energy to listen to more advice or more opinions or more noise around the parenting space and spectrum. So I support that. I understand that's fine. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But I really implore people, and one of the things I always say is switch off to things that don't align with you. You don't have to follow an account online or listen to advice that doesn't align with you and your core values, even if it's me. Modern parenting is shaped and scrutinized by things online. We are actually having active conversations online, like in these spaces, about what's parenting and what's not, and like these conversations before and after, and what's okay now and what's developmentally appropriate, and what we feel is healing and not healing. Before, parenting happened in community and village. I really want to touch on this because it's a big one, especially again, if you are an autism, neurodivergent, medically complex family, whatever that looks like for you. But even just typical families feel more isolated and alone and not having that community and connection. I know, again, my own personal experience. I grew up being always around aunts and uncles and cousins. We don't have that now. In fact, there are a lot of families, no contact with certain families, or intentionally because they're trying to break cycles and heal their own inner peace, stepping back, not because they want to, not because it's fun, because they are trying to heal. So there is less, and even before you even bring in the topic of breaking generational cycles or complex family dynamics or dysfunctional family or healing or breaking the patterns, just in general terms, we are less in a community feel and yes, in a village. And a lot of the time that could also come back to where I said some families don't feel safe to let the kids walk down the street to play with the neighbor or go have sleepovers or things like that. So there's more awareness about different topics, and we're also much more busier. Um, the cost of living means that a lot of families have to have like three wages to get by, um, if and where possible, to do so, depending what their financial situation is. But, that's a lot of a factor, is just even having the time and energy to be more present while you're trying to balance the survival that our family generations already just did, the survival. Now we are trying to balance everything else and that. So um, you're not just parenting, you're breaking cycles. If you see me looking off to the side, I do often write little notes to help me because I do have ADHD and I can tend to get on a ramble sometimes. So I try to keep this sounding really clear and stay on track. So I do take little dot points before I do podcasts. So you'll see me sort of looking off to my notes. Like I said, you're not just parenting in survival mode, you are breaking generational cycles. You are healing and unlearning your own patterns, which is really an emotional and spiritual experience of its own. You're not just raising your child, you're raising them differently to have awareness, regulation, and connection. And it takes an emotional labor and toll, like I said. Here's a little reframe for you that I wrote down or dot pointed in. Parenting isn't harder because you're failing. I want mums to know this because for the longest time I was like, this affected me. This is why I was like, I've done this work now and I've got this stuff going on. I need to talk about this. Like, I need to support mums through this. Because you're not failing. You are more aware, you are more conscious, you are more intentional, you're more attuned, and you're more present. And instead of feeling like that's a failure, that should actually be such an empowering thought. I know for the longest time I thought this is a lot, like I am failing this, but you're not. You're actually like it's a win for you. It is a win because you've healed something. You've healed something. You're doing more than the previous generations could even think to hold. And some of them still look now down at what we're doing when we're healing and go, what's that? So pardon me, I'm just gonna go for a drink. So as I said, there is a lot of research and studies currently happening and being done, sorry, that are like, you don't need to do more than you're already doing. Previous generations didn't break cycles like we're doing. They weren't as present and attuned. And also, like I touched on that safety factor too, like we're carrying that. So here's some simple reminders. Stop overloading your nervous system with more. The support you need is more grounded support, more empowered support, and someone that's going to lead you through or connect with you. This generation needs connection. I know we feel like we have it through online, but it's really not the same as sitting across from someone and having them hold space for you, right? Pause before you react, lower your expectations. That is a core one, a big one. Because when our expectation is up here, we like a part of breaking the cycle is the fact that we feel like we've never ever going to reach where we should be. Create small moments of regulation and share the load where possible and connect with other mums. The one beauty about having online is while it can be overwhelming, it can be connecting too. I really would implore you to either join one of my free groups, or connect with me about joining the Calm Mother Code if this is something that you're finding is overwhelming you too. But I also just want to know, do other parents think these things? Connect with me, share, say, yeah, I feel that, or no, I don't feel that. Like, it's okay to share whatever your current experience is. If you're ready for deeper support, like I said, feel free to reach out about the Calm Mother Code. Remember, you're not failing. Motherhood and parenting in general has changed, and the generations are continuing to change. And I just want you to continue to just support yourself emotionally and continue to take moments of pause and stop trying to put pressure on yourself to be somewhere that you're never going to reach. Keep reminding yourself of where you're already at. I hope this episode was helpful for you. I really want to talk about this topic and more and see if mums have, felt this too. And I will link in some of my content today some of the studies that I looked at. maybe attach them where possible. That I'd love to know if mums have read or looked into these studies. Um, because it's really, really supportive to know that it's not just you and it's not a made up thing and it's a real thing, that mums and dads today really do have it a little bit harder. And that's not to say other parents didn't have hearts, but today we have a different level of heart. So in closing, remind yourself you're not failing and take a moment to ground. Thank you.